Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 4 of What If Naruto was an Rosario vampire. If you guys enjoy this what if, and want to see part 5 of it, comment down below and let me know. The like goal for this video is 200 likes. So like this video, to let me know that you're interested in this series, and you want the next part. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. It had been a month since Naruto had even seen daylight. The compression sessions had gone fine, he could literally feel himself becoming stronger than ever, but like Tsunade had told him, the only people he had spoken to were the people compressing their knowledge into him. Currently, the blonde Jinchuriki was lying down on the bed he had been given in the underground base he was staying at with his hands intertwined behind his head as a makeshift pillow, despite there already being a pillow there. "Hey, did you hear?" A faint male voice came from the other side of his steel door accompanied by the footsteps of two people. Naruto got up off of the bed, and walked on the cold concrete ground over to the door, and pressed his ear up against it, so he could hear better. "HM? Hear about what?" The second voice was also male, but it was slightly deeper than the first, and held a gruff edge to it. Apparently one of the medical bases on the border of Kaze no Kuni and Kawa no Kuni was attacked. Which one of the Uchihas did it this time? No one knows yet, that's why Uchiha Sasuke was sent to investigate. Naruto's eyes whitened as he heard this, and he pressed his ear on the door more, so he could hear better. Just that criminal. What are they thinking sending him on his own? Don't ask me, I've got no clue. Naruto clenched his fists as the sound of footsteps completely disappeared. Why would you go on your own, Sasuke? You know you're no match for either of them. Naruto muttered angrily, before glaring at the door. That's it, I'm going to. There's no way that I'm letting you die like that. The two shinobi who had been walking near Naruto's room and speaking about the attack on the medical base, stopped their walking and chatter, as they felt the ground shake, and heard an explosion occur behind them. Naruto grunted as he made his way through the smoke that had come into existence from the explosive notes he'd used on the door. "They were really prepared to keep me locked up in here," he drawled sarcastically. "They more than likely never thought you'd actually be trying to break out of here." "Yeah, maybe." Naruto agreed before he noticed red lights starting to flash inside the hallway he was in, accompanied by a loud beeping noise. "That's just fantastic. Uzumaki Naruto. Get back inside your room. Do not attempt to resist, we will not hesitate to use force." Naruto glanced to his left to see the two ninja, one from Iwa and the other from Kumo, who had been walking down the hallway and talking to each other, glaring at him with kunai held firmly in their hands. "This could be a decent time to test out some of my new skills, I suppose," he mused before turning fully to face the two shinobi. "I'm not going back into my room." He met their glares with one of his own. "Now move, or else you're going to be in a world of hurt. We have our orders, we're not letting you out of this space, so that the Uchiha can get his hands on you," the Iwa shinobi declared, and Naruto recognized it as the voice which was deepest, and held a gruff edge to it. "Then you've brought this on yourselves." As soon as the words left Naruto's mouth, he quickly pulled out a kunai of his own from his weapons pouch on his thigh, before he dashed forwards. Steel clashed against steel as Naruto's kunai slammed against the Kumo shinobi's own. The Iwa shinobi wasn't idle though, he lays out with his own kunai straight towards Naruto's wrist, going for a quick disarm in hopes of stunning the blonde. Naruto easily saw it coming though, and his leg came up before it collided with the Iwa ninja's ribs, sending the man flying back. A slight buzzing sound drew Naruto's attention back to the Kumo shinobi he had his kunai up against. Sparks flew from the shinobi's kunai as it started to cut through the Jinchuriki's own like a knife through butter. Naruto let his grip on the kunai loose before grabbing the other ninja's wrist, and twisting his opponent's entire body around, so that his arm was held behind his back. The Iwa shinobi got up off the ground and suppressed a wince at how hard the kick had been, before noticing the predicament his comrade had been placed in. Gritting his teeth together, the ninja ran though a few quick hand seals, before slamming both of his hands on the ground. There was a slight rumbling sound before a rock burst through the concrete walls, floor and roof around Naruto until it formed a box-like structure big enough to fit both him and the Kumo shinobi he had hostage. "This won't keep him there forever, but it should buy us enough time until backup arrives," he murmured as he kept a steady flow of chakra going into his technique. His eyes widened in shock though, when he heard a grinding sound. The sound got louder and louder until the hard rock that had encased Naruto and the Kumo shinobi exploded outwards, showering the immediate area in rubble. Naruto dumped the Kumo shinobi's unconscious body onto the ground, before he patted himself down to get rid of any dust. Blood ran down the Kumo ninja's head from a small gash that he'd gotten when Naruto had slammed his head into the hard rock to knock him out. One down, one to go. The alarms were still blaring, and the red lights in the hallway hadn't dimmed in the slightest, as the Iwa shinobi gulped and prepared himself for a one-on-one confrontation. "You know," Naruto started as he began to slowly run through a set of hand seals. "Ever since I learned this technique, I've wanted to use it on someone. I guess you're going to be my test subject of sorts." Naruto planted his right palm on the ground and kept his left hand in a ram seal. Almost immediately, a sealing array appeared, where the blonde's palm was on the ground before a line of kanji stretched out from it at a fast pace in the direction of the Iwa shinobi. When the kanji were close to the shinobi, a similar sealing array appeared under the man, and he found himself struggling to keep his eyes open, let alone stand on his two legs. What the? The Iwa ninja murmured quietly in surprise before his body went slack and collapsed onto the ground. Naruto smirked slightly to himself, only for it to drop from his face seconds later, when he heard a familiar, icy call tone come from behind him. Uzumaki Naruto, you are defying orders and have harmed two ninja of this alliance. I hope you're prepared to face the consequences. So, what's everyone planning on doing this weekend? Mocha asked curiously as the four, Naruto, Tsukune, Kurumu and herself, sat at one of the tables, outside near the cafeteria. Naruto and Mocha were seated on one side of the table, while Tsukune and Kurumu were seated on the other side. Behind them was a trash can that had 3 empty instant ramen cups poking out of the top. There were other students seated at similar tables around them, speaking amongst their own group of friends. Oh yeah, it's Friday, isn't it? Naruto mused aloud, more as a statement than a question before he shrugged. Didn't have anything planned, really. What about the two of you, Tsukune-kun, Kurumu-chan? Tsukune took a gulp of water from the bottle he had in his hands. I was just going to relax. So I'm not really doing anything. I'll go wherever my destined one goes. Kurumu exclaimed cheerfully, before latching onto the human's arm that wasn't occupied by holding the bottle of water, causing Tsukune's face to heat up. Great. Mocha smiled widely as her green eyes sparkled with glee. Then we should do something fun this weekend. All 4 of us. Sure, but what? Naruto asked since he didn't really know what counted as doing something that would provide him with entertainment. Back in the elemental nations, the only things he really did that would count as entertainment was fight, train, eat, sleep and then fight some more. Not that he actually had a problem with fighting or anything, he actually enjoyed it. It gave him a chance to see how strong he was compared to others. The adrenaline rush that came with it was a nice touch too. What about going to the human world for the weekend? Tsukune asked, trying to contain the excitement he felt welling up inside of him at just the possibility of going back to his own world. That's a good suggestion. Naruto agreed, not noticing how Mocha's smile had dimmed slightly. So long as we don't go to Tokyo, then that's fine with me. Why, what's wrong with Tokyo? Tsukune asked with an arched eyebrow. Nothing's wrong with it. I've just been there already. Naruto replied dismissively. Mocha frowned when she heard Naruto's words, remembering what he told her about the run-in he'd had a run-in with some yokai in Tokyo, but she decided not to comment on it. Alright, well there's other places in Japan. The human who couldn't use chakra trailed off when he saw Naruto shake his head. What is it? I was thinking of going to a place far away from Japan as a whole. A slight grin stretched itself across the blonde's face as he recalled a place that had been mentioned in class that went by the title of the entertainment capital of the world. Somewhere like Las Vegas in the USA. Tsukune's mouth opened and closed in surprise at the statement that came from the blonde. Traveling overseas had always been something he'd wanted to do, but he and his family just never got around to it. Las Vegas. Kurumu murmured as she tilted her head to the side slightly, an intrigued look coming onto her face. Isn't it the place that's known as the entertainment capital of the world? Mocha's interest peaked when she heard the supposed title of Las Vegas, while Naruto's grin grew slightly wider. Yeah, sure is. And a place like that has got to be fun, right? Well, yeah, but there's a couple of things that need to be spoken about first. Tsukune said and everyone's heads turned to him. First of all, going overseas to a place like that would cost a lot of money that we unfortunately don't have. Don't worry about the money. Naruto's grin died down into a small smirk. I've got plenty of it, so that won't be a problem at all. Okay, but that's not the only thing either. There's a lot of organizing that needs to go into traveling that far. Like having a passport, buying tickets, buying accommodation and stuff like that. A small, confused frown appeared on Naruto's face. What's a passport? A passport is basically something that has your identification and is used for international travel. Tsukune answered. Shouldn't you know something like that, Naruto-san? The place where I grew up was isolated, I guess you could say. When the black-haired human nodded to show he understood, Naruto made a motion with his hand to tell him to go on. Anyway, keep going on with what we'll need. I'm serious about going to Vegas. Tsukune nodded and leaned forward slightly, once again trying to contain the excitement he felt welling up inside of him. Well, that's really all we need. This money, our own passports, a ticket for each of us, so we can catch a plane over there, and organizing accommodation and we can do all that over the internet. Tsukune said before a frown came onto his face. But, it takes a while for you to receive a passport. I remember mine taking just over a week. Do you have your passport with you? Not on me right now, but it's in my dorm room. Tsukune answered, even if he was confused by Naruto's question. Kachan told me to bring it with me when I came here, so it would be there if I needed it. That's great then. A smirk once again found its way onto Naruto's face. Mocha looked at him curiously. What are you going to do, Naruto-kun? Isn't it obvious? I'll make fake passports for all of us who don't have one using Tsukune's as a reference point. This is illegal, you know. Tsukune commented as he handed over his passport to Naruto. As soon as the last class at the school had finished, Naruto had grabbed Tsukune's shoulder and used the Shunshin no Jutsu to get them to Tsukune's room so that the human could grab his passport and laptop before he used the same technique to get to his own room. Mocha and Kurumu, on the other hand, had gone to find Nakaname to see if they were actually able to leave the academy. Naruto rolled his eyes as he took his friend's passport and walked over to his kitchen and laid the passport on the counter. That doesn't bother me. Besides, where I come from, making fake identities and the like is basically an everyday occurrence. Tsukune sighed before taking a seat on Naruto's futon and placing his laptop on his lap. He flipped it open and turned it on. So how are you going to make a fake passport anyway? With skill, of course. The black-haired human rolled his eyes at the ninja's answer before he started typing on his laptop to get a site up where he could look at prices for flights and accommodation in Vegas. How much are you willing to spend? I told you already, Tsukune, don't worry about the money. I have plenty of it, so go nuts if you want. Naruto said as he leaned over the counter and flipped through Tsukune's passport before he sensed two familiar signatures coming towards his room. Good, looks like they got an answer. I'm just saying, because the flight's cost alone for all of us from Tokyo to Las Vegas is going to cost a lot. Tsukune looked over at his friend to see if there was any reaction from the teen, but the blonde just kept flipping through his passport, completely unconcerned with how much it would cost. He shrugged. If his friend was confident that he could pay, then who was he to say otherwise? So long as we don't spend much time in Tokyo, then we should be fine. Naruto thought before closing Tsukune's passport as a clone exploded into existence beside him, gaining Tsukune's attention. Alright, let's see if I can actually do this. Naruto murmured as the clone was enveloped in a cloud of smoke. When the smoke died down, it revealed an exact replica of Tsukune's passport. Naruto picked it up and started to read through it. What was that? That black-haired human asked slowly as he gazed at Naruto with obvious surprise. I created a clone and had it transform into a copy of your passport, only with my information instead of yours. Naruto replied with a small grin as he closed the fake passport that he would be using before throwing it onto his futon. Take a look. Tsukune picked it up and opened it to have a look. Wow, this is amazing. He muttered to himself as he saw that it might as well have been an official passport for his blonde friend. 3 knocks on the door brought the two boys' attention away from the passport before Naruto made his way over to it, already knowing who was there. Naruto opened the door and was greeted with the sight of 2 smiling teenage girls. We got permission to go. Mocha beamed as Naruto moved to the side and let the 2 of them in. She didn't really like the idea of going to the human world, but spending the weekend at a city with the title of the entertainment capital of the world. She was finding it pretty hard not to be excited. Well, Nakaname-sensei told us we had to ask the headmaster, and he said that we were allowed to leave the academy for the weekend. Usually we would need a teacher to accompany us, but he said he'd make an exception. Naruto nodded at Mocha as she and Kurumu both took a seat on his futon, with the succubus looking over Tsukune's shoulder to see what he was doing. I doubt that the creepy headmaster made an exception for us without a reason. We'll probably have to do something for him at some point in time. Naruto thought with a silent sigh. Okay. Tsukune announced, a small smile coming onto his face as he found what he was looking for. I found us some flights that are leaving Tokyo at 8 tonight, as well as some accommodation in Las Vegas at a hotel called the Monte Carlo. Wait a minute, don't we need a credit card to do stuff like this online? Kurumu asked, getting a nod from Tsukune. Yeah, I was just going to use my credit card details to pay for it, then have Naruto-san give me however much it costs in cash. The black-haired human explained before glancing at the ninja. That's okay, right, Naruto-san? Yeah, that's fine. Naruto answered and Tsukune started typing on the laptop again. Mocha-chan, Kurumu-san, you two should probably go pack for the trip. We'll be leaving to catch the plane soon. Oh, right. Packing. Mocha exclaimed before jumping up from Naruto's futon, grabbing Kurumu's arm and dashing out the door. Well said, succubus yelled out at Yahoo. Well, someone's excited. Naruto remarked before shaking his head and walking over to where his backpack lay in the corner. He unzipped it before plunging his entire arm in there. Something that shouldn't have been physically possible considering the length difference between his arm and the backpack. Well, he stuck his tongue out to the side and furrowed his eyebrows together in concentration as he searched. Tsukune looked over to see what he was doing and blinked a few times before rubbing his eyes to make sure he was actually seeing what was in front of him. Naruto-san, what are you doing? And how did you fit your entire arm in that backpack? Just a moment. There was some sounds of metal clashing against metal as Naruto rummaged through his backpack. It was a minute later when Naruto stopped looking as a triumphant grin broke out onto his face before he reached his arm out holding an ink bottle and a brush. Got it. An ink bottle and a brush. Not just any ink bottle and brush, Tsukune. Naruto said as he stood back up and walked over to the kitchen counter, taking his blazer off and placing said piece of clothing on it. Okay, maybe they're just any ink bottle and brush, but that's not the point. Here, come watch. Sukune took his laptop off of his lap, before walking over to the blonde, who had opened the ink on the counter, opened it and dabbed the brush in it. What are you going to do? Just watch. Naruto murmured in reply before he placed his left forearm on the counter, and started to draw numerous kanji just above his wrist with precision and in rapid succession. He lifted his forearm up and showed it to the other human, once he had finished his task. Ta-da. What? 1 second. Naruto once again went over to his backpack and started rummaging through it until he pulled out a black pouch-like object. The shinobi opened his weapons pouch before bringing out a couple of kunai. He held the weapons over his wrist before sending some chakra into the seal he'd drawn up just above his wrist, and they disappeared in a small plume of smoke. What was that? Sukune asked with widened eyes as the smoke cleared to show that the weapons Naruto had been holding were nowhere to be seen. That is a storage seal. Naruto placed his pouch next to the ink. It allows me, or anyone who knows how to use one, to seal an assortment of items, like what I did with those kunai. Pretty basic thing where I come from. Why are you drawing them? So I can seal all my weapons in there. Don't want to risk being searched only to have them find I have them on me. Naruto answered as another plume of smoke erupted next to the blonde, and another replica of the Jinchuriki was revealed before Naruto placed his right forearm on the kitchen counter, while the clone grabbed the brush, and started repeating what Naruto had done before. Can't write with your left hand. Not at all. Once they had all finished getting packed, all 4 of them had left the academy grounds, and made their way towards the place where Naruto and Sukune had been dropped off on the first day, right next to the scarecrow that had a pumpkin for a head. It had only been 5 minutes since they'd started to wait for the bus, and Naruto had already started pacing. He was never a patient person. How long does this guy want to take? He grunted to himself, before leaning on a nearby dead-looking tree and crossing his arms. He shouldn't be long, Naruto-kun. Milka sent him a reassuring smile. The headmaster told us that the bus driver wouldn't arrive long after we got here. That creepy old man sure did. Kurumu added in. How do you know he's an old man? I mean, sure, he's creepy and all, but that doesn't mean that he's old. The succubus crossed her arms under her breasts and glanced at the blonde, before replying to his question. I just get that feeling when I'm around him, you know the one. No, not really. Naruto jetpanned. Kurumu huffed while Tsukune decided to step in. Do we really need to be discussing the headmaster's age right now? The bus will be here soon. As if on cue, the sound of an engine reached all their ears, as the bus stopped right near where they were all waiting. The doors on the vehicle swing open to reveal a familiar figure with glowing eyes and a cigar in mouth. We'll get on then. He said, and the students readily obeyed before he chuckled in an eerily creepy way that made Tsukune feel an all too familiar shiver run up his spine. So you're all off to Vegas, huh? Hope you've all brushed up on your English. Naruto placed his backpack on one of the seats before sitting down. Nothing to worry about, I'm confident that I'll be able to communicate with others over there, and if not then I'm sure that Milka-chan will be able to. Her grades are a lot better than mine, you know. Milka felt her face warm up slightly at the praise as she sat down while placing the bag full of her belongings down next to her. Now that the initial excitement of going to Las Vegas had worn off, she found herself feeling apprehensive at the idea of going to the human world. She swallowed it though, remembering how the others, Sukune especially, were ecstatic at the prospect of going to the human world. Well, buckle up and prepare yourselves then, Vegas can be quite fun. The way the bus driver put emphasis on the word fun made Sukune feel uncomfortable. The smirk onto his face wasn't helping any either. He shook it off, though when he heard Naruto's slightly annoyed voice reach his ears. There's nothing to buckle up with. Naruto let out a content sigh as he relaxed in the cream-colored leather chair on the aeroplane that he and the others were on. Sitting on his left and right next to the window, Sukune let a small smile cross his face as he got himself comfortable in his chair. Milka and Kurumu were on the duo of chairs in front of them quietly chatting with each other. After the bus driver had dropped them off at the airport, Sukune had led them all through the airport until they'd heard over some loudspeakers, as Sukune had called them, that their flight was boarding people. The currently black-haired, brown-eyed and whiskerless Naruto passed over his, along with his 2 children and nephews' passports, to show the woman in uniform, who needed to confirm their identities. Oh no. The lady mused aloud before glancing at the 4. It says that you're this young man's uncle, and those 2 are your daughters. She eyed Milka and Kurumu suspiciously, taking note of the very different hair colors as the 2 girls played along, and nodded vigorously, while Tsukune gulped slightly, and hoped what they were doing wouldn't come to bite him in the ass. Yes, that's correct. Naruto gave the woman a smile. So, can we get on board the plane now? When they had boarded the plane though, Naruto had felt several Yuki signatures coming from various different locations around the airport, but he figured that they were just some yokai trying to coexist with humans while in their human form. Now that he thought about it, he could actually sense a few fairly strong Yuki signature on board the plane, in the first classroom with them, to be precise. It wasn't strong enough to get him overly worried, but it was enough for him to make sure to pay attention to it as much as he could, while trying to not make it obvious. The sealed side of Mocha had sensed them as well. She wasn't very concerned though. If anything, Yura was confident that Naruto would at least be able to pull the rosary off before any of them made a move. "I'm glad you got us some first-class seats, nephew," Naruto said as he adjusted his seat until he was in a lying down position. "Yeah, so am I." The black-haired human agreed, ignoring the nephew comment as Naruto was still disguised as his uncle. "We got lucky though, there was only 7 first-class tickets left when I bought these seats online." Naruto hummed in response as he put his hands behind his head as a makeshift pillow. "How long will this flight take anyway?" "Just under 12 hours, so you better get comfortable." The shinobi let out what sounded like an annoyed grunt at Tsukune's answer. "What is it?" "I don't know if I'll be able to stay still that long with nothing to do." "There's stuff to do though," Tsukune said, gaining Naruto's full attention. "We're allowed to watch movies." "What type of movies?" Naruto asked as he sat up, his interest in the matter rising. The only movie he'd actually seen was Koyuki's. In response, Tsukune leaned over and grabbed something that was on the back of the chair in front of Naruto, and pulled until part of the chair came down, revealing a television built into the chair, along with a remote hung next to it. "Take a look." It had been around 10 hours since the plane had started flying from Tokyo to Japan. The 4 were currently asleep in their chairs, which had been adjusted so that they could lay down and relax. But just because Naruto was asleep, didn't mean that a certain massive chakra was. There was still those strong Yoki signature in the first classroom to be cautious of, after all. "Damn brat getting me to do such trivial tasks." Kurama grumbled with obvious annoyance as he kept his senses open for any ill intentions focused on his partner. "No, not like that, yes, that wait no, that's it ah." Naruto let out a sigh in his sleep before his eyes started to slowly open when he felt a few taps on his shoulder. Blinking a few times to get rid of the blurriness, the ninja peered upwards to see a female flight attendant standing there with what seemed to be a small amused smile on her admittedly pretty face. "Yeah. I'm sorry for waking you, sir." She apologized even though she probably didn't actually care whether or not he was asleep. "But that man over there has kindly asked me to wake you up. He says that he wanted to speak with you." Naruto followed where her hand had gestured to see a man that looked to be a few years older than him sitting in a chair on the opposite side of the room. The man in question had short blonde hair that had spikes sticking up here and there, along with a set of light blue eyes, and a rather lazy expression. He wore loose-fitting black pants and a black leather jacket. When the man sent Naruto a smirk, he was able to make out some very sharp-looking teeth. "Thanks," Naruto said, and the flight attendant nodded before walking away. He got up out of his chair and cracked his back before letting out a yawn and trudging over to the man who had asked for his presence, idly taking note of the fact that he was one of the yokai in the first classroom. "You wanted to speak with me?" Sure did." The man replied in accent that was definitely not Japanese as he stood from his chair. "Not here though, follow me." Naruto listened to him and followed the yokai out of the first classroom until they were both stood in a small hallway with multiple carts with food and drinks on them, right next to the emergency door. There were 2 doors on either end of the hallway on the opposite side that they came in, which led to the lower class areas. "What did you want to speak about then?" "Not much, really," the man replied, and the Jinchuriki could have sworn he saw lightning spark in his eyes. "Just about how you pose a threat to our organization, and that I was sent here to kill you. I'm Kia, by the way." Naruto actually blinked at the casual tone the sentence was delivered in. "And what organization is that?" Kia arched an eyebrow at the human. "Wow, you're actually not freaking out." Usually people, humans especially, would get worried or at least nervous if someone told them that. "I've been in a few life-threatening situations before." Naruto shrugged nonchalantly as he leaned on the emergency door. "You didn't answer my question though." "Sure, I'll tell. Do you think I'm stupid or something?" Kia deadpanned. "The only thing you need to know is that you could get in the way of our plans, and you need to go the afterlife." To go along with his words, the yokai lashed out with his right leg straight at the ninja's stomach. Naruto easily saw it coming though, and managed to block it with his hand, but he wasn't expecting there to be such force behind it, and as a result, he was sent straight through the emergency door and out into the open air, while his transformation forcefully ended. He grunted and shook his hand to get rid of the numbness. "What was that?" Not only was it a hard kick, but it felt as if my hand just got shocked by electricity. The sound of Naruto being sent through the emergency door managed to wake everyone who was asleep in the first classroom, and there were several groans of protest. What was that?" Kuruma mumbled as she rubbed her eyes and yawned in her seat. Sitting to the succubus's right, Milka stretched in her own seat. "I don't know, Kuruma-chan." "What about you, Tsukune-kun, Naruto-kun?" Milka got on her knees on the chair and turned around to face the 2 boys, only to find one of the people she questioned covering his mouth to stifle a yawn. Tsukune blinked a few times and took in his surroundings. "Where's Naruto-san?" The aforementioned blonde was currently plummeting towards the ocean and trying to figure a way to actually survive. "I so wish I could fly right now." Kurama snorted, sending the water that surrounded him rippling away from his giant form. Of course you do. That would make getting out of this situation easy. Naruto was about to respond to the biju, but was interrupted by a rather smug voice that made him twitch. You look different. The shinobi tilted his head to the side to see Kia, only his arms had been replaced golden-colored wings with feathers. Ah well, it doesn't matter. So, you having fun falling to your death? Not really, maybe you can make it more entertaining. Naruto shot back, before grunting and twisting his body, attempting to land a kick to the yokai's face, but Kia didn't have wings just for show, and he used them to maneuver out of the way easily enough. Can't fly? That's too bad for you. Some more lightning sparked behind Kia's light blue eyes as his body started to bulge, and his yoki began to rise. Kia's body grew in size until it was easily the size of the plane itself, while golden feathers started to form from the wings that he had until he was covered in them, while his feet turned into talons. The beak appeared atop the yokai's head before it slid down onto the front of his face, as if he was wearing a mask. The beak opened in a malicious grin that showed numerous amounts sharp teeth. Maybe if you were a thunderbird like I am instead of a human, you'd have had a better chance of surviving. You're speaking as if I'm already dead. The shinobi gritted his teeth together as he glared at the yokai. You might as well be. Dark clouds formed around, below and above them, as the thunderbird flared his yoki into the area. Can't do much in that position, can you? Lightning once again sparked behind Kia's eyes, only this time it seemed to keep sparking, until the twin orbs glowed and shot a bolt of lightning straight towards Naruto. Excuse me. Sukune said as he tapped a flight attendant on the shoulder, gaining the woman's attention as she turned around to face him. They were still in the first classroom, and the female in front of him was carrying a tray of drinks. I was wondering if you'd seen my uncle. He has black spiky hair and brown eyes. Yes, I did see him, sir. The flight attendant smiled slightly at the black-haired human. One of the other passengers in first class wanted to speak with him. They went through that door. She pointed to said door, which was white in color. Alright, thanks. Sukune smiled at the flight attendant, getting a nod in return, before he along with Milka and Kurumu walked towards the door that the woman had pointed to. Several people in the first classroom who had been pretending to be asleep saw them heading towards the door, and they threw the blankets that had been on them away, before they sprinted to the trio's destination and stood in front of it. There was 4 of them in total, all with light blue eyes and short blonde hair with spikes here and there. They were wearing black loose-fitting pants and leather jackets. Sukune glanced between his 2 friends and the 4 identical and stoic-looking men nervously, while Kurumu narrowed her eyes, and a red slitted pupil appeared on Milka's rosary. Quadruplets. The human thought before shaking it off. Can we help you? We won't let you through this door. The one on the far left declared as the other 3 nodded simultaneously, while the one on the far right continued. We won't let you get in the way. Get in the way of what? Sukune asked in confusion. Sukune-kun, they're yokai. Milka informed, having heard her inner self tell her the same thing, and the aforementioned human took a step back. What have you done with Naruto-kun? We haven't done. The one on the far left stopped in the middle of his sentence, and narrowed his eyes, when he saw the flight attendant slowly making her way towards the door one step at a time. And what do you think you're doing? He sneered. Lightning sparked behind his eyes before the light blue orbs glowed, and a bolt of lightning soared straight for the woman. The flight attendant didn't even get a chance to look shocked as she was hit dead on by the yokai's attack. A certain Thunderbird's expression was annoyed as he stared at the shinobi who was now falling towards him from above with a tri-pronged kunai in hand. Why bother dragging this out? You're going to die anyway, so just stay still, and let me zap you a little. A little? Naruto deadpanned. If you had have hit with that attack before, I would have gotten zapped a lot more than a little. Details. Ki scoffed before flying straight towards the ninja at impressive speeds with his beak opened. Maybe you'll be a decent snack. Thunder crackled loudly in the background with each beat of the yokai's wings. Sorry, I've been eaten a couple of times before and it's not a pleasant experience, so I'm not going to be your snack. Naruto shot back as his enemy got closer and closer. Time seemed to slow down for Naruto, while he glared straight into Ki's light blue eyes, while the sharp teeth he had within his beak glinted almost hungrily. Finally, after what seemed like an age, the Thunderbird was close enough that if Naruto reached out he'd be able to touch it. And that's what he did. Time returned to normal as Naruto channeled chakra into his hand before he sent it forwards, and he attached it on top of the Ki's beak, while keeping his body away from the sharp teeth that were dead set on chewing him to bits. You pass. Naruto ignored the way the corner of the beak curled up into a sneer and flipped his body around until he was standing on top of Ki's head, while said Thunderbird thrashed around and flew through the dark clouds in an attempt to get him off. Despite the fact that he had chakra running to his feet, the blonde still found it difficult to stay in the one spot, with all of the attempts that Kia was making to get him off. Stop moving around, you overgrown bird. If anything, the insult only served to anger the Thunderbird, as it put more effort into its attempts to get the human off. Reddish-orange pigmentations formed around Naruto's eyes. His pupils became horizontal and bar-like, while his irides became yellow. He put his fingers in a cross-shaped seal, and 4 bursts of smoke erupted around him, 2 on each side of his body. Already knowing what to do, the 2 clones on the left ran down the left wing, while the 2 on the right did the same with their side. The original Naruto, however, simply placed his hand back on Ki's head, only with different intentions. When he pulled his hand away, a seal could be seen proudly planted there. Rain started to pour as more thunder rumbled around them, only this time Naruto was able to catch a quick flash of blue light up the dark area. Get off. The Thunderbird let out a screech as it turned upside down, hoping that Naruto would fall off. Seeing that the annoying human was remaining in the same spot, Ki started to spin rapidly with his wings curling towards his body, to provide himself with more rotation. The clones in the original Naruto desperately held on, with the former using the physical strength granted by natural chakra to hold onto the wing they were near, while the latter of the 2 didn't have anything to grab onto in time, and was sent soaring away into the dark clouds. He didn't have much time to celebrate as he had yet to rid himself of the clones that were still tightly holding onto his wings. With a grunt, the Thunderbird stopped spinning and started to rocket upwards. All of the clones simultaneously grinned when they saw this. Well, the plan was to force him to fly up, but it seems as if he's doing it on his own. They mused just as their creator reappeared on top of Ki's head at the point where he had placed the seal before, holding the Thunderbird's feathers, as if they were his lifeline with chakra running through his feet. They broke through the top of the dark and stormy clouds. Because Naruto was using natural chakra, he was able to sense where the plane was by searching for the multiple life forces that were aboard the aircraft with ease. Looking in the direction he felt the life forces coming from, he was greeted with the sight of the plane flying a fair distance away from him. He was about to smile in satisfaction, but stopped himself when he saw a bolt of lightning tear through the side of the aircraft, right where first class was located. More of these guys. Guess I was wrong to think that Ki would be on his own. 2 clones burst into existence beside him as the 4 on each of Ki's wings dispersed. The 2 clones grabbed one of his arms on either side of his body, while he himself took a few steps back. With all of the physical strength granted to his clones, his body was basically a paperweight to them, so it wasn't much of a surprise that they managed to launch his body through the air straight towards the plane, without having to put all their strength into it. The dust cloud that had formed and blocked their view of what happened slowly dissipated until it was completely gone. The female flight attendant's body was leant up against the wall, only there was a large hole in her chest, showing off some of what was left of her ribcage and internal organs, while blood had splattered against the wall. The lifeless eyes bored directly into Tsukune's brown aghast ones, before her entire body seemed to slump and collapse onto the floor, where a pool of blood started to form. Kurumu seemed indifferent to the flight attendant's death. Mocha didn't really know whether to feel sorry for the woman or not care at all. Humans still weren't her favorite race, after all. Tsukune though was horrified as he stared at the rather gory scene with wide eyes. How could they do that? How could they just kill a living being like it didn't even matter? He closed his eyes tightly and clenched his fists by his sides. Why? What does she ever do wrong? Before the human could think more on the matter, there was a loud thunk accompanied by the appearance of a sizable dent in the ceiling. A poof soon followed, while the rosary round Mocha's neck lifted itself, and the red-slitted pupils seemed to stare at the dent with slight interest. Stupid humans. The yokai who'd shot lightning from his eyes muttered to himself with a roll of his eyes. What was that? Tsukune snapped, sounding angry and confused. Before he could get a reply, one of the nearby windows right next to the corpse smashed open, and a carefree-looking shinobi stepped in through the small hole with some trouble. Yo? One hand was in his left pocket, while his opposite hand was lifted in the air as a wave, all the while completely ignoring the woman's unmoving body. Naruto-kun, said Blonde smiled at the relieved-looking Mocha, Kurumu and the confused, angry and relieved Tsukune. I'm just a clone, the boss is up there fighting some giant lightning bird. A thunderbird he called himself, I think. He blinked when he saw the 4 yokai blocking the doorway towards the hallway where Kia had introduced the original to free-falling. Who the hell are they? Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification, and also check out the other videos that I have created, and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.